Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. In this one, I'll be going over the starts and sits for Week 7, Part 2. So I'll be covering the final 8 games of Week 7. We've got 2 teams on bye this week, so that leaves us with 15 games this week. Covered the first 7 games in the first video, so if I don't cover any of the teams you're looking for here, go watch that previous video. I'm recording this Thursday night, so right after the Thursday night football game. Not exactly the most fun game here. We saw the Broncos pretty much just stomp the Saints. Broncos looked pretty good on offense. It was great to see Javonte Williams finally be realistically useful for fantasy. He gets to play the Panthers next week too, so I bet Javonte will put up one more big week. Don't be surprised if he's on the sell high list next week though. Other than that, not a whole lot to take away. This Saints offense, this whole Saints team is just a mess. They need to get healthy and get healthy fast. They're probably not going to have Shaheed the rest of the season. Olave should be back in a couple of weeks, so that's at least something to look forward to. Kamara, I'm a little bit concerned there just because this offense looks really bad. You're looking at several games in a row of him not really playing the fourth quarter because they're out of games, and then it's just really difficult to produce on that offense when you're the only player they can look at. So when he caught 6 passes today, so in full PPR he was okay, but in half PPR, non-PPR had 24 total yards, no touchdowns. Obviously not going to get it done there. So yeah. That being said, let's get into the last 8 games here. If you guys do have any specific start-sit questions, let me know in the comments. And yeah, let's just get into it here. Starting things off with the Bengals at the Browns. I think we're just going to start all the Bengals in general again. Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, they're all must-starts every single week at this point, the way that offense is playing. If I'm playing a Bengals running back, it is going to be Chase Brown over Zach Moss. But I'm a little bit less optimistic than it seems like everyone else is. Everyone else is talking about how Chase Brown is really trending up in this offense. And that's true. He sort of seems to be taking over that Zach Moss role. But I mean, Zach Moss is still the primary guy they trust in pass protection. Chase Brown, decent fantasy game last week, but just remember 9 of his 14 fantasy points came on a 30-yard touchdown run at the end of the game where he should have gone down. So and it was right after he fumbled before the 2-minute warning, and they just happened to land on it. So, that's an 11-point swing for his fantasy day. If he loses that fumble, doesn't get that, he ends up with a 3-point game last week instead. So, you were this close to getting a really bad game out of Chase Brown last week. So I don't think we should be as optimistic about what Chase Brown's done over the last several weeks as what everyone else seems to be. For the Browns, they're nasty. They traded their one good player in Amari Cooper this last week, so that's not really exciting. Jerry Jeudy, desperation flex play. I don't love it, but if you need some volume, he will get it. He should be the wide receiver 1 in Cleveland. David Njoku, probably the only Brown I want to start. He's going to see a ton of targets close to the line of scrimmage. It's hard to miss the guy when he's only 2 yards away from you. So Njoku should be solid enough to get the job done. And then as far as that goes, you're not going to play Deshaun Watson. For the running back room, I can't imagine wanting to start Nick Chubb in his first game back. I'm going to need to see him with a full workload first, so I probably just want to avoid the entire running back room for Cleveland. Not going to mess around with Deonta Foreman or Pierre Strong or any of that this week. It's just not worth it. Next, we've got the Eagles at the Giants. Fun one here. We're going to see Saquon return back home to New York here and play the Giants for the first time. That should be a fun game. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown. Must starts every single week, even more obvious without Dallas Goedert. And there's no one else for Philadelphia that you're looking at. Giants' run defense is actually pretty good, so I wouldn't expect Saquon to go out here and run for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in his homecoming game there. But, narrative's fun there, so it'll be fun one to watch there. For the Giants, I think we're going to get Malik Neighbors back in this one, so obviously if he's back, we're starting him. Darius Slayton came up with a groin injury today, so you're not going to mess around with that. Wan'Dale Robinson would be a desperation flex play. And then really I don't really want to play anyone else for New York. If Devin Singletary comes back, it's probably going to be a really muddy backfield between him and Tyrone Tracy. I still like Tracy. I wouldn't drop him by any means, and I think he deserves to just effectively take over that role. So we'll see what happens there. I just sort of want to see how that backfield shakes out for 1 week before I trust that. But if I'm going to play a Giant running back, it would be Tracy, just because I think he's a better player. I'm going to be more involved as a pass catcher as well. This should be a game when the Giants are playing from behind. And then, if Singletary's out, Tyrone Tracy would absolutely be in my lineup for sure. Next up, we got the Raiders at the Rams. For the Raiders, Brock Bowers is a must-start, and Jacoby Myers is going to be a decent flex play, but really nobody else that I want to get involved with. Alexander Madison is the desperation running back play here. We should have Zamir White back, which just makes this whole thing super gross. Madison's clearly the better running back in the backfield, but if Alexander Madison's your best running back, you kind of know you got a really bad running back room, so I don't love any of that. I would just prefer to play Bowers for sure, and then Myers if you need to, primarily in a full PPR. Is a good matchup against the Rams, so I don't hate that. For the Rams, Kyren Williams, he's a must-start for sure. Cooper Kupp trending towards being back in this one, so I'd look to play him if he's back. It's a good matchup against the Raiders. I don't imagine they'd play Cooper Kupp if he's not 100% because they know what the re-injury risk is there. Granted, they are 1-4, so they do kind of need to start winning, so maybe they are rushing it a little bit. But if Cooper Kupp is playing, you're playing him just because we know what that ceiling is. And I don't really want to start anyone else. I can't trust any of the receivers because Cooper Kupp's probably going to command a 30% target share if he plays. Takes away a lot of targets from Colby Parkinson. Stafford, not reliable enough for me to trust right now. It's going to be Kyron and Kupp and then nobody else for the Rams for me. Next, we got the Panthers at the Commanders. Should be a fun game, actually, too. Pretty bad defenses against some offenses that are really clicking right now. For the Panthers, Chuba and Deontay, both of them need to be must-starts the way they're playing. I can't imagine sitting either one of those guys. Xavier Legette, a decent flex option here. He's clearly the wide receiver, too, in Carolina. Dalton's still slinging it pretty well, and this should be a high-scoring game, so I think you can play Legette as a decent option if you need to in the flex. For the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson, all of them are must-starts. Basically, any running back against the Panthers is going to go off, so you're playing Brian Robinson and probably Austin Eckler in this one. And then Daniels and McLaurin are just getting it done so reliably that we have to play those guys. I'll mention Zach Ertz as well. Good streaming setup here. You can definitely play Zach Ertz. You can expect like 4 for 50, and honestly, sometimes that's just what you're looking for out of the tight end spot, so you can play Ertz if you need to there. Fun game here. We get a Super Bowl rematch between the Chiefs and the 49ers. For the Chiefs, really only one must start for me, and that's going to be Travis Kelce with how involved he's going to be going forward. Beyond him, Kareem Hunt, Juju Smith-Schuster would be the next two guys that I'd want to play. Kareem Hunt, like a low-end running back too, just not a great matchup against the Niners. And then Juju, like, we've only seen 1 week of it, so it's tough to trust it. We don't know how reliable that's going to be, but he would be the right wide receiver that I'd want to play if I had to play a Chief wide receiver. Xavier Worthy, not listed here. Like a deep league flex option, like you're hoping for that 50-yard touchdown. It could happen, but I don't love it. I think I'd prefer to bench Worthy if I can. And then Patrick Mahomes, of course, if I'm not saying any of these pass catchers are going to be super reliable. I don't really want to play Mahomes either if I can avoid it. So low-end streaming option, I would play guys like Geno. I'd play Purdy over him. I would be looking to actively sit Patrick Mahomes in this matchup. For the Niners, Jordan Mason, he'd be in my lineup if he's active. I just can't imagine going away from him the way he's been playing. Obviously, a little bit risky with that shoulder injury. We could easily see him re-aggravate it. So if you happen to have some really good options, you can pivot there, use it as a tiebreaker. But it's just tough to go away from a guy playing that well. Beyond that, though, like I'm not sure I want to start another running back for the Niners if he's inactive. Like Patrick Taylor was really involved as a pass catcher for the Niners, and Guerrero really just saved his game last week with that huge run at the end. Really looked significantly less effective than Mason up until then, so it's tough for me to really recommend any of those guys if Jordan Mason misses. So it's probably Mason for me and then nobody if he's inactive. For the Niners pass catchers, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Going to be strong starting options here. Juwan Jennings sort of trending towards not playing right now with an injury. Deebo is dealing with a wrist injury, so if both Jennings and Deebo are out, then Ayuk and Kittle should be monsters this week. But even with Jennings out, it just gives a few more targets to these guys, makes me feel a little bit more confident that they'll be reliable. And then Brock Purdy, low-end quarterback one for me in this one. The Chiefs are a really good defense, so I wouldn't expect like a shootout in this game. Kind of funny that the Chiefs sort of don't give us high-scoring games anymore, which kind of sucks. But Purdy's still playing really well. You can definitely stream him as a low-end QB1 this week. Next, we've got the Sunday Night Football game between the Jets and the Steelers. It'll be the first game for Devontae Adams in New York, so that's obviously super fun. But not an easy landing here. Really tough matchup against the Steelers. This Jets offense hasn't necessarily looked fantastic, although I would say they looked a little bit better last week. Aaron Rodgers starting to trend up just a little bit. Makes Aaron Rodgers a low-end streaming option for me. Like, he's got a lot of weapons at this point, so there's a chance that Rodgers ends up being a good option. I'd prefer to just sit him this week. You've got first week of Devontae Adams there, obviously tough to ramp up, and then again against one of, if not the best defenses in the NFL. Tough to trust that, but the weapons are there, so you could do a lot worse. Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, I'd probably start both of them, but expect a limited ceiling. Adams, I don't know how entirely involved he's been. I feel like he'll be able to ramp up pretty quickly. It's the same offense they ran in Green Bay with Nathaniel Hackett there. Obviously, a lot of chemistry between him and Rodgers. They should be okay there. It's going to take a lot of targets from Garrett Wilson, so I view them as both like low-end wide receiver twos this week. Breece Hall, of course, he's going to be in lineups there. For the Steelers, we're going to get to see Russell Wilson. I know a lot of people are not very happy about that just because it's obviously fun to root for Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields myself, but if you guys know me, I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan, so love seeing him get his shot here. Hopefully he can elevate this passing game and really make George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth a lot more relevant, so I am certainly hoping for that. Not playing Russ by any means. Tough matchup. Not going to be great there. I wouldn't expect anything more than like maybe 202 out of him, but just looking forward to watching Russ play football again. For the running backs there, Najee Harris, low-end RB2 for me. Was limited in practice with a rib injury earlier this week. I think he should be okay. It's just, taking a beating. It was a Wednesday practice he missed, or was limited in, so sort of like a veteran rest day in general. Wednesday practices tend to be that, so I'm not really worried about that at all. If he happens to miss, Jalen Warren would be interesting, but I doubt that'll happen. It sounds like Najee should be good to go. For the receivers, George Pickens, really solid flex play here. He does get a significant boost with Russ. Like Russ is going to be a much more capable middle of the field and downfield passer than what Justin Fields has been, and I think that there's a good shot we see a deep ball at some point to George Pickens connect on this one. So I want to get George Pickens in my lineup just because I'm kind of excited about it. I could be a little bit biased because you guys know I'm a huge Russ fan, but I do think Pickens will connect on a big play this week. And then Pat Freiermuth, low end tight end 1 for me. He's been pretty involved so far. I believe he's the tight end 8 on the season, believe it or not. And then Russ is a better passing quarterback than Justin Fields. Whether it's better for the offense as a whole in Pittsburgh is certainly debatable, but the pass catching weapon should certainly perform better in Pittsburgh here. So Freiermuth should be more involved. He gets a slight bump, but I would be kind of looking to start him as a decent option this week. Next on a Monday Night Football, we have 2 Monday night games this week, so we'll start things off with the Ravens at the Bucks. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Zay Flowers, I think, all need to be in your lineups here. The Bucks are a tougher team to run on. They can also put up a ton of points, so in game environments where the Ravens are going to give it up, they'll have to throw the ball a little bit more, and Zay Flowers becomes a really great option. We've seen him be fantastic 4 of 6 weeks, basically. 2 games where they basically didn't pass the ball at all were obviously the ones where he wasn't great, but I'm playing Zay Flowers wherever I have him. I kind of feel like Mark Andrews is going to have a great game this week, actually. The Bucks are a pretty solid matchup for opposing tight ends. Should be a high-scoring environment. Again, they're going to have to throw the ball, and I think Andrews is sort of coming on just a little bit. As you have better options, you can certainly play them, but I do kind of view this as a good Mark Andrews week. For the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, Evans, Godwin, all of them need to be in lineups. There's no way I'm really even looking anywhere else for either of those guys. Like Baker's the quarterback 1 or 2 on the season right now. Evans and Godwin have been fantastic. I prefer Godwin to Evans right now, but Evans obviously has a ton of touchdown upside. You're playing both of them. Cade Otton, decent streaming option if you need to. Like getting targets, good matchup here. Should be a good game environment, so I don't mind playing him. And then the Buccaneer running backs, that's the real conversation here. My personal advice, if all of them are active, is going to be to play none of them, which I know that sucks. That's not what you're looking for, but the Ravens are effectively a pass funnel here, so you can't run against the Ravens. You have to throw the ball, which is kind of good for the way the Buccaneers want to play football, but if you're trying to play a Buccaneer running back, you're hoping for a lot of pass catching involvement. So, like, if I had to play a Buccaneer running back this week, it would be Rachaad White, because I think maybe he'll catch 4 or 5 passes, but I don't see a world where any of these guys have 50 rushing yards. A rushing touchdown seems like maybe one of the 3 of them between Bucky, Tucker, and White get one, but I have no idea which one of them is going to be. I'm not excited about any of them except maybe Rachaad White in full PPR, but even that feels bad. I would prefer just to go away from all of them and just sort of wait and see how this backfield shakes out, because if they're truly going to go with a hot hand, it's probably going to be a nightmare, and I just don't really want a lot to do with it this week. And the final game of the week here, we're going to get the Chargers going to Arizona. J.K. Dobbins for the Chargers, he's going to be a must-start. He played 73% of the snaps last week. He's a true workhorse without Gus Edwards active on the roster with him being on IR. Hopefully he can stay healthy because he looks really great. There's no way you're not playing him this week, though. Really great matchup against Arizona. He should be in line for a big game. Ladd McConkey, really solid flex play as well. The Cardinals are not a very great pass defense. We saw Quentin Johnson leave the game with an injury last week. He's playing hurt if he plays. McConkey's the clear wide receiver 1 in this offense, and I think he'll probably be in line for a solid game this week. But really nobody else that I want to play for LA. Like Justin Herbert is a really low-end streaming option. There's just not enough volume there. Last week was their best offensive outing on the season, and even that wasn't entirely inspiring. I just want to go with McConkey and Dobbins and sort of check out there. For the Cardinals, don't really love the situation here just because, again, playing the Chargers really lends itself towards a really slow pace of play. Not a lot of points scored, not a lot of plays. Tough to really just put up a lot of points on the board. So not a lot to be excited about on the Cardinals side of the ball. Kyler has been hit or miss so far this season, so I could see if you have better options wanting to go away from him. Like Baker Mayfield, I would play about Kyler as an example, as a guy that could be on waivers and available for you. Trey McBride, he's going to be a must-start. Like he's a rock star. We saw him be super involved last week after Harrison went out. There's no way you're missing or sitting Trey McBride. Marvin Harrison would be in my lineup if he's active in this one. He did practice on Thursday today, so that's obviously great news towards him trending towards potentially being active on Monday with that concussion. So if he clears protocol, there's no way I'm sitting him. Like concussions aren't going to limit him on the field, so you're playing him for sure. But just keep an eye on it. You want to make sure that we have clarity before Sunday because it gets really tricky. You got to have a pivot. Like Michael Wilson is a really great pivot option. Like that'd be a scenario where I just hold on to both of them and you can put Michael Wilson in if Harrison misses. But obviously a really tricky situation there. Hopefully we get some clarity before Sunday. Then James Conner, really solid low-end RB2. Obviously wasn't great last week. Keep an eye on his injury status because he did get his ankle taped up mid-game. James Conner is a guy that does have some historical injury concerns, at least a little bit, but I think it's just tough to go away from James Conner. You're probably putting him in your lineup this week. So that'll do it for the starts and sits in week 7. Up next, I'll be going over my Sunday live stream, so 1 hour before the morning games kick off, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. I will be going live, answering any start sit questions you guys have, going over the latest injury updates, and getting you guys all primed and set to win your games in week 7. Beyond that, there will continue to be weekly recaps, waiver videos, trade videos, starts and sits in these live streams every single week. So make sure you subscribe to the channel that way you don't miss any of that future content. If you made it this far in the video, please do give it a thumbs up. It just helps me out quite a bit. And then as always, if you want some help from me, just let me know in the comments below. I love giving you guys advice. Start sit questions, trade questions, just let me know in the comments. I love interacting with you guys there. And it's just really fun seeing what you guys have going on as well. So appreciate you guys. It's been a lot of fun. I'll catch you guys Sunday morning with a live stream, and hopefully we can get some wins in week 7. Peace, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.